Hey folks, it's Keith, Victor Echo 3 Sierra Victor Quebec, also known as the Shaky Key, back with another video looking at a topic that I think every single person who decides they're going to learn Morse code or CW, that's we often refer to it, every single one has to make this particular decision. So I just thought I would look at some of the pros and cons because I've done both, all right, and I had fun doing both. So I'm just going to go over some of these because if you are sitting back there, watching YouTube, which is where we all go when we want information now, and you're saying, yeah, maybe I should learn Morse code. It'd be fun to use in a park, or maybe it's just something I should have done 20 or 30 years ago, and now I'm retired and I want to do it. And then your next decision is how do you go about it? Some of that is going to be driven by your personality. Mine, I don't like to be boxed in. I don't like to be told what to do. So classrooms for me, I'm a teacher, right? I teach Morse code, but classrooms for me are always something that I've resisted over the years. I like to do things on my own. So I recognize when people out there say that's their preference. I have no problems with it. When I first did Morse code, which would have been 89 to 90, it was classroom, and a real classroom. You sat in a classroom with 25, 30 other people and your oscillators and so on. And at a set schedule, set time, and everything else. And my schedule back then was a little bit crazy. So I didn't do as much classroom time as I wanted. I ended up doing a lot of the time on my own at home. When I came back to relearning Morse code, if you want to look at it that way, I guess this would be about 2, 3 years ago, I opted to do it on my own. And I had a great time. I had fun doing it on my own. There were positives and there were negatives. Eventually, yes, I did get into a classroom situation, which I enjoyed. And of course, now, like I say, I do teach them, and I'm not going to promote any individual organization or that here today. That's up for you as an individual to do your own research on. So what are some of the pros and some of the negatives? Doing it on your own or doing it in a classroom, and there's a bit for both. So like I said, I've got experience with both, several, twice at least, if not 3 times when I tried it another time. So I'm going to give you the benefit of my experience, and then of course you go out there and make up your own mind how you're going to do it. So I guess really the fundamental difference is that sense of independence, the sense that you're making all the decisions, you get to do what you want to do when you want to do it, which is very true. And that was something that I enjoyed when I was doing it on my own. And again, even to that, there are positives and negatives. You pick the app you want to use, you pick the web page you want to use. And of course, every web page has instructions and they tell you how they would like you to do it. And within reason, you probably do what they tell you. I used one of the better web pages out there, and that time when I was doing it, when I came back, they were doing, I think their suggestion was 20 words per minute character speed, 15 words per minute word speed. What did I know? I just did it at that. And, we were doing 5-letter groups right off the bat. I didn't know that was supposed to be difficult because that's the way they told me to do it, and I did. I think the big issue in the end was I was doing what I wanted to do. Everyone says they're using the Koch method, Koch method, and his letter sequence and so on. And actually, if you look at the websites, there is some similarity to it. Some sites have varied it a little bit and so on. But there's a sequence to letters that you learn. So if you're doing it on your own, it's whatever your website says. If you have an app on your phone, it's probably going to send you the letters that they want you to learn based on the sequence that's being programmed into that app. In a classroom situation, yes, there's also a sequence of letters that you're going to learn. So either way, you're both following a sequence that someone has devised for you. So as much as you think you're on your own and you're doing your own thing, you're really doing what some designer or Morse code operator who's designed a website has decided you should learn, and in what order, what speed, and so on. So you're not completely independent either way. And, there is a structure, there is a plan. And I think the biggest issue for me when I came back was I could practice, say, 2 letters today. The site I was on would introduce 2 letters, and I would practice them. And maybe they were letters that I remembered quite well from previously. So I could go through them really quick. I knew those letters, no issues there. And then I'd want to go on to another letter and another letter and another letter. And in some weeks, I might cover 4 to 6 letters. Where in a classroom situation, you might cover 2, 3, whatever that course curriculum says you're going to cover. Now, if you're independent and you're on your own, you think, well, what a waste of time if I already know the letters. Reality is, when you're doing Morse code and you're learning it, there's an expression. You can't overstudy the alphabet. So in the classroom situation, even if you think you know those letters after 2 or 3 days of practice, it's to your benefit to keep doing them and doing them and doing them over and over and over again. That is something I can almost guarantee you won't do if you're doing it on your own, because, hey, this is boring. Let's go on to another couple of letters or whatever. So you tend to get all the letters done probably, I would say, substantially faster than you would in a classroom situation. But looking back, I probably didn't learn them and know them as well as I would have if I'd been in a classroom where they were making me sit down and practice whatever the week's letters were, whatever the previous weeks were, and so on. So that's the one thing that you have to watch when you're studying on your own, is that you just don't jump ahead thinking you know it when you really haven't put enough practice into it. And that's where the instant character recognition comes in too. If you're on your own and you're using most of the websites out there, the apps, yes, the apps will give you almost the equivalent of instant character recognition. You don't get that in some of the programs. So that's something that you need to work on. And like I said, you cannot overstudy the letters in the alphabet. So if you get 2 letters or 3 letters this week, and then you've got to wait, another week before you get some more letters, practice the hell out of them, because down the road, it really is going to make a significant difference for you and your skill level and so on as you go through, your copy ability and so on. Because remember, we're doing this by sound. We're not doing it by memorizing. And I think that's another issue that pops up when you're on your own. It's pretty simple just to print off that chart, dits and daws, and, dit, da, well, that's an A, and so on, and memorize that chart. It's very simple. It's also the way a lot of us, including myself, were taught way back, back in the olden days, right? We were taught, it was perfectly acceptable to memorize that chart. I can remember instructors holding up flashcards, dit and da, and the class would have to call out, that's an A. Or they'd hold up an A and they'd point to someone and say, send me that. Right? So, yeah, it's different now, right? I mean, there's a lot of study gone into how to teach Morse code and how to teach in general. There's all sorts of documentation on it and so on that people follow. So I think that's an issue. You tend to understudy, if you want to use that term, if you're doing it on your own, because you think you know it. Whereas in a classroom situation, you'll find out very quickly if you actually do know it as well as you think you do, because every organization, every club will have various exercises they will put you through. Exercises that you may not have or may not be available to you if you're doing it on your own. So yes, that's something for you to consider if you're coming back into the situation. And remember, for the bulk of the courses that are being taught now by various institutions, radio clubs, and so on, most of these now are no longer in a physical building, in a physical classroom. It's on Zoom. So, that's very, very common. So again, your flexibility, your time commitment is less. You're not driving somewhere. talking to people before the class starts, talking to people when the class ends, driving back home, especially if you're doing this up here in the Great White North in the middle of winter. And you're doing it from the comfort of your own home. So that sort of has negated a lot of that negative part of it. Every club or organization out there that teaches Morse code has some type of curriculum. If you're not sure, look them up. A lot of these organizations are on YouTube, right? Do your homework, look them up, see what they say, go watch the videos. Many of them show classroom situations or how they teach, what they teach, and so on. An explanation of their method, if you wish to call it that. Many of these organizations have their curriculum or the logic behind how they teach on their website. Go look it up and read it. Don't necessarily jump at the first one you see. Do your homework. All right, this is something that is going to help no matter how you do it, and no matter who you use for that matter. It's going to help you. Try and find one that you think works with you, with your philosophy of studying and so on. But everyone out there, if they know what they're doing, they have a curriculum. The websites have the curriculum. The disadvantage when you're on your own is you can change that curriculum, right? You can jump around. Oh, it says I should do K, L, and I today. I don't really want to. I want to do R, S, and T, right? I've been there. I've done that. So I know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that. Now, if you're at your, doing this on your own, you can definitely go at your own speed, right? You can sit down and you can maybe put in 30 minutes today and do really, really well at it. And then, tomorrow you're a little busy, so you don't do it. But you're back 2 days later, and here I go. I'm gung ho again, and off I go. And maybe I'll put in, 2 hours. And then, the next day, no, I'm busy. And so I'm not going to do it that day. But I'll come back in a couple of days and pick up, where I let off. That's one of the worst ways to do it. But we all do it when we're on our own. It's just a natural thing. Life gets in the way. Right? Work gets in the way. Family gets in the way. Who knows what else? So when you have a club and they say, your class is, every Wednesday at 8 o'clock, you have to be ready by the time that class comes around because the instructors and even the other students are going to expect you to know your material. So you do tend to put a bit more effort in. You do tend to force yourself to become a little bit more organized. It's the organization that helps you. It's learning the proper method to study, not just sitting down like I just said, do it for 2 hours. And believe you, I've done that. Now when I look at it and I go, oh my goodness, why did I do it that way? Why? Because I didn't know any better. All right. But again, like I say, your choice. You decide how you want to do this. So that, let's call it discipline, that study discipline. That's something, unless you're very good at it, some of us are extremely focused. And, you have that drive, that discipline to do it day after day after day. It can work for you. But the vast majority of somebody, I wonder really if you do have it. Right? Because those are the type of things that most of us tend to slack off on. Now, another area where there's a difference is when you have the website or the program in front of you. A lot of these programs or the apps allow you to set your own character speed and your own word speed. Now, like I said, one of the major websites that I use, they were suggesting 2015. So I put it at 2015. I didn't think anything of it. That's what I started at. And, they would tell you, well, you could go 2515. All right, let me try 2515. I didn't know any better. Now, whatever club you are in, they are going to set that or suggest your character speed and your word speed. And yes, some of the organizations differ in their philosophy as to what your character speed should be and what your word speed should be. Any method out there will get you on the air. It's up to you to gain. Like I said, do your homework. Do the one that works for you. And I think the biggest problem as an independent person doing it, okay, they said 20 words per minute, 25 and 20. So I'm trying that. I'm not quite getting what I want. Let's drop it down 20 and 18. Still not getting everything the way I think I should. So let's drop it down maybe 2015. Still not working. So I'm missing letters. Let's go down 2012, 2010. You have that option. Whereas if you're in a structured organization, less chance of you doing that, because really you're not helping yourself when you do. A little less chance, that you're going to stick with whatever your club is recommending, because that's what they're going to expect you to be able to do. So that's one other little thing to think of. And I think one of the big issues for me when I was learning on my own was there is no one there to help you. You get stuck, and we all get stuck. Everyone learning Morse code has issues that pop up. In many cases, they're the same as everybody else. You might find you're having trouble with the letter K and the letter R, or the letter F and the letter L, to use just a couple of examples. And if you're on your own and you keep making those mistakes on those letters, it's very, very frustrating. And, it can be very almost, just, I give up type stuff. Whereas if you're in a classroom situation, the person there, the instructor, will say, who's having problems, and maybe 2 or 3 other people in your class are having problems with the same letters, or maybe with a different set of letters, but the same problem. So you begin to understand that the issues you have learning, other people have the same issue. And it's not you, and it's not that you're too stupid and you can't figure out how to do Morse code. It's that you have the same issues as a lot of other people. So it becomes less frustrating, and you can ask a question. You can ask someone, in your class, whoever your team leader, teacher, whatever term you want to use. You can say, listen, I'm having this problem. How do I fix it? If you're like me and you memorize, your brain likes to count dits and dahs, something we don't want you doing now. So, my issue was I had come from doing very fast to a slower classroom situation. Speed and word speed was slower, so I could sit there and count all the dits and dahs. And it was frustrating until I simply asked the question, how do I get around this? And a couple of other people were, we got the same issue. So I realized it wasn't me, right? It was a common issue, and the instructor told us how to fix it. So that help is there, irregardless of what organization you're using. They have instructors who are there who are more than happy to help you. A lot of them will say, here's my email. Email me if you have a question between classes. Help is there. And when you learn on your own, I think that's a really important one. I really do. You will get explanations too as to how you do things. One of my biggest issues, besides the frustration of not getting certain letters and so on, you reach what we now call a plateau. You're going great guns, and then all of a sudden there's no progress. You're not getting where you think you should be, and a lot of people quit when they hit those plateaus because they're not seeming to get ahead. Someone out there will tell you, this is what happens when you reach one of those. This is why. Here's how you deal with it. So that little tiny bit of help makes a huge difference. And I find even with this YouTube channel, I get questions from people along those lines. I'll get an email and someone will say, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And I'm really fed up, and I think I'm just going to pack it in. And you look at it, and it's a very common issue that people have. So that lack of help, I think, is an issue for a lot of people. But, there's a lot of people who have that drive, who will still plow ahead. I've spoken to people who've been studying, I'll use that term, Morse code for 2 weeks, and they're on the air. Was it great Morse code? No. But they were on the air. They were very happy. They were satisfied. They had reached their goal, which was to get on the air. And that's part of something you have to do either way, independent or in a classroom. Have a goal, have a timetable. I always say to my students, your course is so many weeks long. Look down the road. Is there a date coming up that you would like to be on the air? Aim for that one. You can adjust it if things go sideways, but pick something. Give your reason, yourself a reason for sitting there. If you're on your own, looking at a computer program, give yourself a reason. Give yourself a target date. It's going to help you immensely, and will definitely help you to keep you focused, which is one of the key issues when you study on your own. Now, another issue when you're on your own versus in a classroom is sending practice, right? So here you are, you've got your Morse code key, if that's what you're using. Some will start with the paddle, it's whatever works. In my case, it was a Morse code key, the same one I used back in 89, 90 when I first got my license. Hey, and you can send those letters all day long. It's so much fun. You can take a book, you can send them because you know them and everything else. You think you do. So if you're doing this on your own, or even if you're doing it in a classroom, my recommendation is you have a cell phone with a memo app on it. Record yourself over and over and over and over. Listen to your sending after you've recorded it. Could you copy what you sent? Because that's one of the things when you're on your own. You think you understand correct letter spacing, correct word spacing. And unless you've gone out of your way to practice that and listen to yourself, you just think you're sending perfect code. Whereas in a classroom, for the most part, your instructors are probably going to ask you to send whatever material that you've been studying. They'll listen to it. There may be other resources available where you can go and get help with some of your sending issues, whatever it happens to be. How do you hold your key? Right? How do you push your straight key down? You watch the videos on YouTube, you're probably going to see 4 or 5 different ways. What works for you, right? You're going to have to find out. Are any of the ways you see on YouTube incorrect? Possibly. According to YouTube, you can learn Morse code in 2 hours. I watched that video. I've watched it recently again. There was another one, I think it was 15 minutes, and you could learn Morse code. I'd love to hear that person on the air. So again, YouTube's YouTube. And I always say, look at whatever you see on YouTube and do your own homework and investigate before you actually go and copy it. So sending is obviously an issue. Setting up your Morse code key or your paddle correctly is an issue. You can always get help if you're with an organization on your own. Well, your help is YouTube, really, right? That's your helper. So there you go. There's a few of my thoughts. I'm sure many other people, those who are watching this video, have your own thoughts on some of these points, which are fine. More than happy if you make a comment, punch it down below. Of course, I always say, like, share, subscribe, comment. It's all good no matter what. I hope this helps some of you who are going through that process of making up your mind as to what you want to do, how you want to learn Morse code. You can do it either way. It's up to you as to which way you prefer, which way you want to try. And either way that you do it, I hope down the road you let me know how you're going. Flip me a note, flip me an email. I always get a kick out of seeing how people are. I enjoy contacts with some of my former students who are now on the air. It's always fun. And, either way, I'm looking forward to meeting you on the air, having a contact with you, having an exchange with you. And I hope you have as much fun as what I'm having. Because, after all these years, 30 odd years of not doing Morse code, I know how much I've missed. Good luck with your studying. no matter which way you choose to go. Have a great day. From the Shaky Key, 73.